Are live.
Okay, we're counting down. So let me go. uh, Why do I have live comments over here?
Can you see comments now?
Well, let's see here. Let me go over to the other channel, and yeah, it's not up yet. It hasn't popped into your thing, and I don't think it's. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, hang on a second. Let me go in here, and I'm sure nobody's figured out. Okay.
There you go. James Denton. Thank you. James
Yeah.
Denton says we hear you. Okay. Cool. Well,
I think with all these comments already, I think we were live before this. Maybe.
they were getting impatient. I don't blame them. I put the notification up
Oh, okay.
just after 8 GMT. So yeah, they've been waiting patiently for about half an hour.
Oh, Jesus. Sorry about that, guys. We didn't, well, I didn't know about that. We
Well,
were supposed to have a little tryout here today to see how
yeah.
the new streaming service worked, and I didn't know about the notification. Well, I didn't.
Well, I didn't either. I just put it up there, and apparently it sort of opens up the comment section early. So just have to bear with us because we're still getting to grips with this StreamYard thing.
Right. Yep. We're getting to learn it, and I think it's going to work out just fine.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
anyway, I mean, look, I think people like you and I have kind of turned into misanthropes, and the whole thing is that people really look at it as almost a one-dimensional term
mm,
of just hating people, and it's quite far away from that in my point of view. And the way I feel about it is that I've I've just gotten very uh, tired of people in general. Not
right.
not the individual, because there are individuals that I enjoy being around for a short period of time. It's not that I want to be constantly around people all the time. Even people I enjoy, and I know you're the same way. We've talked many times before where, boom, one of us is all of a sudden gone just because we got other shit to do, right?
Yeah,
So, I mean, it's not an antagonistic thing. With, um, you do have friends, but you do prefer your time by yourself without the drama of other people.
So do you think there's a certain type of people we avoid, or do you think we just sort of as a result of this? I mean, we do tend to spend a lot of time alone after taking the red pill, if you can call it that, after becoming more aware of relationships in general with both men and women. Do you think we change as a result of having to isolate ourselves for the introspection, or do you think we sort of become less tolerant of a certain type of people or people in general?
I think it's people in general, and the the problem of getting into a uh, uncomfortable situation when you go out and mingle or do anything in public with other people. And I also think that it's a gradual transition to withdrawing from the public in general.
Right.
It's not something that you do from one day to the next. You know, you don't just wake up one day and say, I've had it with people. I hate everybody, and that's not the way it really works. It's just like, okay, I've had enough. I'm just tired of this shit. I'm tired of arguing. I'm tired of people bumping into my shopping cart, or I'm tired of assholes cutting me off when I'm riding the bike or something. After a while, it's just like you tend to back off. You just want to kind of get away from it and have a more peaceful, quiet existence where you're in total control of your own life and your own thoughts.
Do you think that's because you've changed? Or do you think it's because people have changed? Because there's a comment there from Mark Worthington, and he said something I was thinking. He said, I feel society and the way the establishment is shaping and forcing our behavior creates the worst in people. But if there is any shred of humanity left in the individual, hope is there. And it sort of insinuates that society has engineered people to be less social, less cooperative, more selfish, more competitive, less empathic. Everything that sort of divides people on an individual level. The community is just shattered, the family is shattered, and people don't know how to get along.
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword, really. And my point of view is that society has gotten more combative.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that personally, I have changed too over the years, getting older, having gone through what I've gone through, and no longer having that fire to fight everything. When you're younger, you tend more to give that, fuck you to everybody and fight back and do your own thing, regardless of society. So you deal with it, and it's kind of a thing that you almost enjoy, overcoming those obstacles. But as you get older, have gone through so many of those type of things that, it just becomes to where you're not in control of society, you're in control of yourself.
Yeah.
And the more you get that control of yourself, the realization becomes that you're happier.
So do you think there's a key word there? Do you think it's about control? When we sort of realize that society is out of control to some extent, or people just aren't aware of the effects of their actions on others, and we can't control that anyway. And in a lot of instances, there are no consequences for people who, interfere with other people's lives, cause people misery and problems. They just don't give a fuck, basically. And we can't control that. So we sort of come to terms with it and say, okay, I'll take the path of least resistance and just avoid, these problematic people who ultimately cost us time, energy, money. You think it's about control?
Yeah, well, yeah, again, society, it's not that you've lost control of what, and you can't control what society does. Society does try to control you to conform. And I've never been a conformist anyway, but it's society that tries to control you. So you can't control situations when you're one person against an entire society or outlook or whatever's going on out there. Everybody wants you to take a stance. It's like politics. You're either left or you're right. There's no in between. There's no, even discussing the fact that you don't give a shit either way. It's just, no, you got to pick a side. Okay, fuck off. This is where the hatred, or not the hatred, I hate to say that, the dislike for what society is trying to force down your throat. And I refuse to do that. And the only thing I can control is my own personal life, my thoughts, and stay away from as many controlling idiots as I possibly can. So, yeah, there's a certain degree of control that you have over yourself, and your bubble that you want to live in, or whatever you want to call it, to make your life right. And then there's the control of society that it wants to have over you. And
That's
everybody's
important.
yeah.
What you said there about society wants you to conform. So, I mean, conformity, some would say, is about moral reasoning or rational thinking, going against what you rationally believe in favor of, being a sheep, being part of it. It's like the Ash paradigm, the Ash experiment with the different length lines. And the guy knows the right answer, but because all the other subjects give the wrong answer, he gives the wrong answer. And you can see it in his face. He sort of, he doesn't want to give the wrong answer, but if he gives what he knows to be the right answer, he'll be different to everyone else.
Right,
so he goes
standing in an elevator facing away from the door, waiting for a back wall to open up because everybody else is.
Exactly that. And our sense of rational decision making, our moral reasoning, everything that we've learned since we've come into contact with new information leads us further away from conforming. We look at the crowd and they're saying you have to be like us, and the conditioning. We always talk about the conditioning. The way they talk to us, the way they shame us, the way they disagree with us, the way they try and force us or coerce us into being like them, it becomes more and more extreme the further we retreat into critical thinking. We sort of say, no, what you're doing is wrong. And then we have to distance ourselves. I mean, so
well, it takes a certain amount of introspection, I guess would be the right word, to see how deplorable people are behaving out there, and to get away from that, and sometimes you have to be brutally honest in recognizing other people's idiocy and their pretentiousness. And, if you point it out, of course, you're a pariah, and that is something that I tend to do that, and I push people away from me because I do it, because I'm not afraid to speak out and point out certain things. So, most of the time I think to myself, all right, look, let these idiots do what they want, but occasionally it just gets too much. And, when, being nice really isn't the way to go about it. This is how we ended up with this PC culture bullshit where, everybody's offended and everything else. You can't let yourself go down that road and let people abuse you and tell you how to think and act or anything else. And this is where you get to the point of saying, all right, you know what? I've just had it with you people.
Yeah.
You're idiots, and you're not going to tell me how to think, what to do. I don't care what you do. You can censor me. You can, kick me off YouTube. You can shut my internet down. It's not going to change how I think, how I talk, or anything. And this is where you start fighting society as a whole that will not let up on you. They're relentless. So how can you like something that just keeps beating you like an old plow horse that can't work anymore? It's just too much. And this is where, the misanthrope part of it kind of comes in. You do have a real disdain for society and people in general.
Well, I've written something down, and people like Jordan Peterson say, when you're agreeable, when you're the sort of person that follows the herd and lets people push you around, and like you say, we speak out, we don't stand for shit, and we say to people, no, that's not right, I don't agree with that, and I'm not doing it, I refuse. But the agreeable people tend to this is Jordan Peterson's theory. The agreeable people tend to get walked all over in life, and it leads to anxiety and depression because, as a result of being so agreeable, they become easily manipulated and repeatedly exploited, and they end up with fuck all in life. They end up feeling downtrodden and, you know, mistreated, and life isn't fair and all that sort of stuff. And what Peterson says is, you need to be more assertive. You've done this to yourself in a way. You've laid down and let people walk all over you, and your life is a result of you being too agreeable. But we aren't walking away. We aren't becoming shut-ins, or we aren't becoming social phobics, or suffering from anxiety because, you know, people are fucking horrible and we don't agree with them. We're just basically, like I said before, we're taking the path of least resistance and saying, I don't agree with you. You're not going to push me around. You're not going to manipulate me or exploit me. But here's the reason why. I won't deal with you. I won't give you the opportunity. And it's not, I don't think it's because we're, you know, that Peterson's theory there is one-dimensional. He doesn't see that there are people like us, or maybe he does, but he didn't say it, who just won't deal with it. You know, just like say no. You know, just disappear, and or we say we've got better things to do, or we don't waste our time. I mean, you sort of have to draw the line, don't you, with challenging people and disagreeing to the point where you say, they're not going to listen. My opinions and observations of life are so radically different to theirs. You get the cognitive dissonance, and then you realize that you may as well talk to a fucking brick wall with some of these people. I think that's the point of misanthropy I've reached, where I don't hate them. A lot of them, I look at them and maybe I make assumptions. Maybe I make wrong assumptions, but I'm sort of trying to save myself the effort and the pain of pretending to agree with them, or, you know, being polite for the sake of being polite. Or sometimes I've just got better things to do than be around people.
Sure. Look, I think this agreeableness that Peterson's talking about is more capitulation.
Right.
You know? And I don't like that, personally. I don't like to capitulate. I don't like to be put into a position where I have to be agreeable to make my life better and everybody else around me. You know, that is, I mean, talk about the new term of sheeple thing. You know, this goes way beyond that. What he's talking about are, you know, ancient tribal mindsets of, you know, agreeableness within a tribe. And even at that point, it doesn't make for good leaders. It makes for weak leaders, even within a tribe. You know, it's the ones that don't agree with things and put forth something that is more important or more, you know, advantageous to the group, even though the group may not see it that way right now. So, you know, being agreeable is kind of a pansy-ass thought pattern. You know, yeah. You're just laying down and taking your beating, if you will. That is something that I just can't wrap my head around. Now, you know, and at what point do you give up on the agreeableness, you know, to where it doesn't harm you personally? In other words, you have to come first, personally. And the rest of the people around you, even close people, need to be in second place.
Right. I can see where Peterson's coming from. He's obviously a traditional. He's got Christian values. He's
right.
He's blue pill, for want of a better phrase.
Oh, he's tradcon all the way. Sure, we know that.
Yeah,
you know,
big time. So his observations of human interaction will be this is for the best of the community, this is for the best of the group, this is, conformity. He's all for everybody getting along and conforming, whereas our mindset is completely different. We're sort of, like you say, we've got some self-interest, and people have wrongly accused us of being selfish or self-interested, or however they phrase it. But without that self-interest, there is no introspection. There is no time alone to rationalize. And moving on from the negatives of it's not really misanthropy. It's there's a phrase someone used, and I put it in the title. They've called it non-fearful social withdrawal, and they're basically saying, you don't hate people, you don't necessarily distrust everyone, you've withdrawn from society for a reason, and those reasons are, for the most part, positive. You are more creative, you're not scared to be alone, you want to look after yourself, so you don't rely on other people, you don't need validation, you don't need people taking care of you. A lot of this stuff, you become more self-sufficient. But one of the positives was creativity, and I see it sort of happening with some of us. It just seems to follow on naturally. We say, "Oh, what can we do now?" And we naturally tend to do. It's like things like bonsai trees, and working in your yard and fixing stuff. And we find that we turn our hand to stuff that is rewarding. So it's not like we lock ourselves away and stare out the twitch the curtains from a dark room and spit on the passers-by.
Yeah, we're not hanging out in a closet or in a basement, whatever, going and not enjoying life. I think I enjoy life now more than I ever have, just doing my own thing, and you got to remember, I mean, here, interacting with people, it means you have to kind of partake in their lives in some way, right? So the more you interact with them, the more drama you have to put up with, because interacting with other people, you got to deal with their problems, frustrations, all these things come into play, and I just don't have time for that. I have my own problems to deal with. So, just because I want to take care of myself and deal with my own life and make whatever I have left the best it can possibly be, that would include not having to worry about other people and their problems all the time. Occasionally you can lend a kind ear and let somebody talk, and okay, fine. But after a while, that can even get to you. And I know back in the old days, you had plenty of people getting in touch with you, as did I that were constantly whining, constantly needing help, constantly, after a while, it wears you out. It's like, holy shit, oh my God, come on, get a hold of your life. Don't put this all on me. I can't deal with this. I have a life myself. And you eventually have to get into that, I guess you would call it tough love thing, and tell somebody, look, hey, either grab the horse by the fucking reins or get off,
Yeah.
So this is where I think that's the fine line, where you call somebody a misanthrope, but it's not the hatred of people. It's just that you're worn out, that you're tired of it, that you're, and you'd rather not deal with it because it's too much to deal with their problems on top of your own.
That's true. And I can see why we have videos and we leave videos up for people. Because it's a good way of keeping your voice out there.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, we've both done it in different ways. We used to do our Sunday hangout thing, which I think helped a lot of people, but it also put a lot on us, and by that I mean all of us that used to do that Sunday hangout, where people thought we were just a, I don't know, private psychiatry thing, or, a whipping boy, or, somebody you can lay all your problems on. Now, look, we all sometimes need to get shit off our chest, but do it one time and get it over with, move on. After that, I don't have that empathy anymore. And if you continue on, I actually want to get rid of you in my life, because I can't deal with that.
We did speak about this beforehand, didn't we? There's a certain amount of information you need. And when you've got that much information, I mean, you need to run with it. You need to process it. And it may take a while. I mean, I said some things years ago, and I go back and I think, fuck, I said it, but I didn't really process that information. I was saying things and not doing them. And now I'm sort of thinking, you've actually implemented that. It took some time.
Sure.
But I had to verbalize it first. But like we were saying before, once you've done that, once you've processed it, you can't stay in that place. And I mean, we stay now to observe and watch men, sort of nurture them, bring them along a bit, and support them as many as we can sort of handle. It's a lot to take on, the problems of other men, but if you've got time for some kind words and support, we do it. And I do, it's like you say, in the past it did get a bit overwhelming. I did get a lot of people
right, and
leaning on me.
The problem is we've gone so far beyond it. We've got a different perspective on life,
right?
I mean, it's almost to where you can't share this perspective unless you've gone through what we have and ended up where we're at now. Right. So, we started off with introspection and then went into the philosophical, and, we started to get that different perspective in life, and then started living it. And a lot of people expect this to happen quickly, So, and it doesn't. It takes years and years and years.
It does. It is a biological change. I mean, I've said it time and time again. And when I see men come in and they say, "Oh, they use the term monk and all this sort of stuff," to change the way you think. I mean, the process. You have to think first before you can put the thoughts into words, and then once you've spoken about it and made your plan, it becomes real. It manifests itself as a thing in the real world. It becomes an action. But these men say, "Oh, I'm this red pill or monk," or whatever term they want to use, and like you say, they've only been around for a couple of months. There is no way you could change yourself. You can change the connections that are hardwired in your brain in that short amount of time. And I think it goes back to what I said. I was saying things 5 years ago, and I knew what I had to do. But it's only when I've gone back, I said, fuck, that took a long time to put into practice. And it did. It's almost like I was telling myself 3 years in the future. It's like when you finally absorb all of this and start living by your own words, then these words will make sense, and that'll be the way you are. And maybe people are doing that. Maybe they're sort of projecting and sort of with their words saying, this is how I would like to be.
Yeah, but on the other hand, look at, how many people feel offended by what we've said and how we've moved on.
Yeah.
How they get all self-righteous, and, you get the hate comments and everything else, and people really dumping on you because they're not there yet. They don't see it. They don't get what you're talking about. It's way over their head, to be quite honest, so they get this this triggered, offended bullshit thing that everybody seems to have nowadays. And, for people like us at our point, we just don't care anymore. Get offended all the fuck you like, But
That's true.
I mean, this is all part of what this name calling of being a misanthrope entails. That you've just gotten to the point where, hey, look, I don't care how you feel, pal or gal, whatever. I don't give a shit. And this isn't gender specific, as we've talked about before. This is people in general. And, it's just, inevitable that when you're so fed up with people that you withdraw from them. And the more you withdraw, the more you find that your life is becoming better and better by finding things to fill your life with, whether that be reading or working on cars or doing the bonsai thing or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. Skateboarding, fuck it, I don't care. Whatever, bicycling, right? So you get to that point where you become an introvert into your own world and really get tired of other people. And it's the public in general. Like I said, there are certain people that I enjoy the company of, but for a short period of time. I've never been a social butterfly. My last wife, she was a social butterfly. It was parties, I'll go here and go there. I was even back then, I found excuses to make, to not go or not do something. And some of these parties that we had to attend, because I had the business and the bike shop and all that shit, I had a pit in my stomach. It was like, God, I don't want to go, and what kind of hassle am I going to get into when I get there? What's going to happen? Fuck, man, I hate that feeling. And boy, once you drop all that shit, and she's gone now, which, great, man, I can do what I want. And not having to deal with that anymore is so liberating and freeing that you never want to go back to it. And you actually have a hatred for that type of thing. I don't want to go to a Christmas party. I don't want to hang out with these people. I don't want to get invited for Thanksgiving. Leave me the fuck alone. I can make my own way.
Too much of a good thing, or too much of a thing.
A thing, yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting. There's a term I heard. I can't remember. I think it was some guy living on a boat, and he described himself as being a social introvert. I thought it was just a phrase he picked up, and he just liked the sound of it. But that when you were speaking then, you mentioned the word introvert, and you said your wife was a social butterfly, and the two terms, it's like when we withdraw for whatever reason, maybe we're sick of people, or maybe we want to spend time alone, or maybe we've just got hobbies that are solitary hobbies. But when we withdraw, we can sort of say, right, now I've brought my social interactions down to zero. And at some point you say, okay, I've had enough time alone. Now I want some social interaction. I want to go to a restaurant for a burger or whatever, or go to the local bar, or meet up with someone who I haven't seen for a long time. And we sort of slowly introduce the social world back into our lives, but sort of, it's like a tap. You can turn it on and off, and we say, okay, that's enough for people now. I need to go back.
It's got to be a limited time. For me, once a week tops, and that's if it's nice weather and I can get on the motorcycle and have a good ride in the country. But I'll go somewhere for lunch, have a few beers, and my limit is tops 4 hours. And that is if the conversation is stimulating and I'm having a good time. 4 hours is it. And when I get home, it is like I almost feel somewhat exhausted, and that's having a good time. When I don't have a good time, or it's like, why in the hell did I leave? Why did I even bother going anywhere? You know, it just gets to the point where, you know, I value my personal space. You know, I want to keep people away from my personal area. This is why I don't invite people to my home. This is why I don't do things. You know, I'd rather go out because that way I can leave when I want. You know, that's why I don't ride with anybody anymore either, because usually somebody is like, "Oh man, I'm not ready to leave yet." Well, you know, fuck off. I'm leaving. You know, see you later. I don't even want to have to say that. I just want to do what I want to do. Right? So it's, you know, anybody that tries to get too close to me is competing with my solitude. And there's no competition there. So is that a hatred of people? I don't know. You know, it's yeah, maybe a disdain or just a dislike, or maybe I'm just fed up. I don't know how to put it in words, but it works for me. And this is what everybody has to come to grips with a lot of times, you know, that they have this idea of what's out there is more interesting, more important. You know, you're missing out on something. You're not. Trust me. You're not missing out on a fucking thing except a lot of drama, heartache, and gut-wrenching shit.
If I look at the definition of misanthropy or misanthrope, it says a dislike of humankind. And I know you're an animal lover. You know, you like nature, the birds, obviously dogs.
Yep.
Why do you think it is that it's people and not animals? I mean, I know animals can, you know, sometimes you want Ripley to go and lay on his bed and he might want too much attention, but why do you think animals are more easily tolerated for people like us than people? What's the difference?
I think animals have somewhat of a childlike more natural driven nature, you know, a thought pattern. In other words, you know, an animal doesn't have intent, I don't think. You know, I don't feel like if a dog attacks somebody, you know, it's to either guard the property, protect the owner, or, you know, whatever the case may be, barring any type of mental problems. So, and animals do have mental problems. Some do, you know, but nature is true. It's honest. There's no bullshit there. And that is what I respect about animals and love so much. This is why I don't go out there and I don't go and kick a snake, you know, or poke a bear in the eye or whatever. I understand them very plainly.
Right.
Humans, on the other hand, have ulterior motives going on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So anything an animal does that might harm a person is natural, it's understandable, it's not malicious, you know, it's not underhanded, or, you know, they're not trying to manipulate you or fuck you over in any way. And it's justified, you know. You know where you stand with an animal. But I think you're right. I think a lot of people, I refuse to tolerate people, because one thing I've noticed about dealing with people, and this has been more so for men lately, is they fucking lie all the time. When you call them out on something, they're
yeah,
like
that's animals don't lie. Animals don't lie. You know, isn't that wonderful? You know, they're honest about their intentions. They're honest about who they are and what they are. People aren't. People are fucking lying shitbags.
I think it's because we can speak. You know, animals, you can see it in their body language. You can tell when a dog is timid, you know, it sort of crawls on its belly, and you can see it in its eyes often. And you can see when a dog has different emotions. But people with this ability to speak, the amount of people I've spoken to lately, and I've had to say to them, you know, have you considered what you're doing? You know, have you ever thought that you might be pissing people off, or you might be inconsiderate, or, you know, people don't want to fucking hear your shit? And they come out with this instant lie that almost finishes your sentence for them. And you look at them and you think, do you seriously think I believe a fucking word of that? And you catch him in a lie later on. And the more I've looked at people, the more I see how often they lie. And it's because they've got this self-interest. But it's not like us. We've got a self-interest which is not at the expense of others. We say, leave us alone. We want to be alone to do what we want to do. They have this self-interest where they just go, I'll do what the fuck I want, even if it disrupts other people's lives and causes them problems. That's what I don't like about people.
Well, they're so devious about it. You know, they'll be smiling in your face and act like they're your best friend and everything, and then turn around and just stab you in the back, you know, and do the most horrendous things to you after they've acted like that. Now, tell me an animal that does that kind of shit. If a dog doesn't like you, you will know it immediately.
Yeah.
Okay? That dog isn't going to put on a pretentious attitude and go, oh, hi there, you know, you're great, and wag his tail and everything and just take a chunk out of your leg. This is not the way it works. So this is why, you know, I do like animals a lot better than humans, because they don't act like that.
Yeah, they're honest. They're honest. I mean, you spent a lot of time without a dog, or a period of time without a dog. How long was it between dogs, so to speak?
Well, between Joey and Ripley now, that was 3 months. I went 3 months, and
Right.
it was hard, you know. I've always had a dog. I mean, almost all my life, since the day I was born, actually, I was around dogs. So, you know, I figured I'm getting to the age now where I really don't have the energy, you know, and this and that. And I was justifying it in my own head, you know, and there were people that saw that I was getting pretty nasty and withdrawn. And even when I went out to lunch, I almost beat the shit out of one of the guys that I've known for years and years at the bar, because, you know, he said something to me, and I went off, and you know, everybody was like, whoa, man, what the fuck? You know, I didn't realize it at the time. And, you know, once I kind of got manipulated into this, you know, and I got the bleeding heart, and, you know, you don't want to put me in that kind of position, because I'm a sucker for, you know, the underdog, if you will. And, you know, all right, you know, let me go look into it. I tried to be as logical as I possibly could and everything else. And then, you know, I got him, and within a month, people were like, man, you've changed, you know, you've gone back to being happy, you this and that. So, you know, I've relegated myself to knowing that this is what I need in my life. You know,
Yeah.
I don't need a wife. I don't need a girlfriend. I don't need people in my life. I don't need a good best buddy. I don't need any of that shit. What I need is one good, honest, friend with 4 legs. You know, that is what I need in my life. Now, you know, everybody's different, you know, but for me, this is the way it goes. And the 3 months were a real mind fuck for me, you know. And but I didn't go out and like try to, you know, socialize more. I didn't, you know, start hitting bars. I didn't go riding more. None of that. I tried to immerse myself in a lot of projects at the house, doing different things, and I'd get things done, and then I'd be like, well, what now? I was kind of lonely, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
I felt alone. I wasn't lonely, but I felt alone. And just having a dog here is somebody that actually pays attention to me, interacts with me. I can talk to him. I know that he doesn't understand half of what I'm saying or more, but I feel complete. And that's all it takes for me. I don't need people, though.
Right.
Right. So, and let me tell you, the people that got me involved with him and the people that took care of him and everything else were some fantastic people. I mean, the shelter, the people that saved him from being, killed, and he got adopted a couple times and this and that. And yeah, though 99% were women, and they did very great. They even took up a collection for the first vet bill because he had some eye problems that needed to be cured and everything else. So, I'm not putting everybody into everybody's piece of shit category, but I didn't get close to these people.
Yeah.
It wasn't any more personal than this. And I know these people wouldn't have pissed on me if I were laying in a ditch on fire. They did this for the dog, So, and I'm grateful for that. But I'm a realist about things. I always have been. Or at least reality as I see it, which is, of course, subjective, But it doesn't usually include people.
There's a couple of things there. It's like you said about people. How far you can trust them. How far you let people in. They were good people, and they looked after Ripley, and they saved him, and that sort of stuff. And we have to sort of say, in terms of interactions, that's as far as we can trust people. Possibly, maybe, or we don't need to go any further into that relationship because that's the extent of the interaction. And I always tried to say to people in the past, you don't know someone until you've really, really given them all your trust. And in that respect, I mean, the only way someone can stab you in the back or betray you is if you extend, so much trust that they can hurt you or, use personal information, or they've got so much purchase on your life that when they cause damage, it really is devastating. So, yeah, I think in terms of being a misanthrope, I think it's sort of selective, and there's a spectrum. It's like, I will extend that much of my trust into someone. I will interact with them so far as long as I need to. And then on the flip side of interactions, there's the isolation, the self-imposed isolation. Now, you said without, between Joey and Ripley, you felt alone, and I can sympathize, and I can relate to that feeling of being alone. And it's something we do have to get used to, because it's like you say, the people who say, oh, I'm red pill, I'm whatever, it takes time. It does take time, and we have to adjust. But I wonder, and this is something we both have to be really transparent about, as much as we're comfortable with being. There were accusations made in the past that a lack of human contact and extreme isolation is actually bad for us. Now, I disagreed with that.
I do too. I totally disagree with it.
I turned it back on them, and I said the alternative is, getting into relationships which can seriously damage you psychologically, financially, emotionally, fucking how many other ways you want to add to it. So they're basically saying, your life will be better if you don't live alone. And I was sort of saying to them, I've tried the alternatives, and trust me, I do not want to fucking go back to that. But when we take it to an extreme of isolation, can it be damaging? Do you think it can be damaging, or do you think it's something we've got to sort of
No,
regulate?
no, it depends on your psyche. You know, how comfortable are you being alone? Can you entertain yourself with your own imagination? A lot of people can't do that.
Right.
You know, now I grew up as an only child, pretty much, shoved in a corner somewhere, and I had to entertain myself. And my imagination worked overtime back then, and I think it translated into later life too, to where I just didn't like running with a pack, even while, when I was younger and riding with clubs. Boy, I butted heads all the time, because I didn't like the authoritarian bullshit of even a bike club. All right, so is it damaging to somebody? Well, some people it may be. Some people that have that dire need to be surrounded by people, to have that constant noise going on around them and in their head. Some people can't sit for an hour with dead quiet, which I'm more than happy to do. And I do it every day. For several hours, I just, I'm sitting here thinking and dead quiet. I love it, And the other thing is, too, is, you talk about people that, relationships and everything else, and that if you want to know somebody's true nature, if you will, is piss them off and see how they react. Get them mad enough to where you've pushed some buttons, and see how nice they are to you anymore.
Yeah.
And see how much you can trust them. Now, back in the old days, we used to have the patch on our vests that said TNO, trust no one. And I think that was even an internal thing with us where, all these guys that call you brother and shit, and the minute something doesn't go well the way everybody wants it to, you're not so much of a brother anymore. And actually they kind of forget you, Yeah. So the thing is, when you want to know how much you can trust somebody, I'd say get them at their worst.
Right.
And you'll find that you actually can't trust anybody. Not completely. Okay. You can only trust yourself. And you have to know yourself, which means you need to get away from people, their opinions, their bullshit, their drama, their entire crap, and deal with yourself. And that's what it comes down to, is you. They say no man's an island. Well, okay, you can disseminate that into tiny little things, but for the most part, yes, you are.
Yeah. I think you have to be. I think to erase the conditioning, all of those voices in your head. I mean, anyone who meditates or anyone who's taken the time to sort of sit in a room alone, you realize even though there's nobody in the room, there are plenty of fucking voices and opinions in your head, and most of them aren't yours. So they rent, like they say, they rent space in your head. And someone once said to me, you think that's your mind? And when I sort of explored and went inside, I looked and I thought, where did all this shit come from? Because this is just other people's opinions and conditioning and bullshit, and most of it isn't in my own interest. And I had to sort of try and pare it down and sort of say, where's my fucking voice among all of these opinions? And you're right, you do need to sort of sit there and be an island unto yourself and sort of find your true voice and say, okay, now all those opinions have gone. I can actually fucking hear myself. I think a
Right.
lot of people go through life without even hearing their own voice and their own opinions.
Yep. And you need to be comfortable in that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't force it. You've got to slowly get into it. And like I said, some people just can't do it. They can't. They've been too conditioned with this societal interaction that is not needed
Yeah.
in a personal, you know, respectively a personal thing that, okay, we're not talking about doing business or, you know, actually having to interact with society to make a living or to, you know, whatever else that you have to do. But barring that, that needs to be put on a shelf, and you need to draw a hard line. You actually need to draw a wall, build a wall, you know, with a small door that you go in and out of. On one side is where you have to deal with the societal bullshit, deal with people's crap. You hate it, but be smart about it. Okay? All you have to do is be 1% smarter than what you're dealing with out there. And then get the fuck away from it. Go through that door again to the other side of the wall where none of that affects you.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to do for most people.
Mm-hmm.
To me right now, that's that's second nature. I mean, you know, next to breathing. So it can occur if you work at it, which means you need to have patience. And this day and age of internet and information and everything being at your fingertips, nobody has any damn patience anymore. And then they wonder why their life is all fucked up, you know, because they don't take the time to know themselves, to talk to themselves. Like you said, listen to their own head, you know, their own words.
I question people when they say, you know, being alone too much is bad for you. I sort of question that because it's natural to us. We feel the need to get away. We've had enough. And how can it be bad for you if you've got this internal calling which says, take some time out, you know, just for your own sanity? Because on observation, I've noticed that stress is caused by people or institutions, you know, because they fuck about with your amygdala and send you nasty letters and threaten to fine you, or, you know, all this sort of bullshit where it's, if you don't do this, then this will happen in red letters and all of this sort of stuff. You think, do you know what? I just need a break from people, stupid people, greedy people, fucking nasty people, people with bad intentions, liars. After a while, it's like a survival strategy, because if you spend too much time in that environment, I know we have to learn to deal with those people, because it's not realistic to say I don't want to deal with these people anymore. We have to. But I don't think we have to be in that environment all the time to the point where it drives us fucking mad. And people end up on meds, people end up mentally ill, people end up fucking drinking too much because the day's been so overwhelming, they need to just completely obliterate themselves to finish them off. You know, that kind of extreme social interaction and never taking time for yourself, I think is so unhealthy. I just think it is healthy to seek solitude.
Well, what it is too is that there are a lot of people out there that just can't leave you alone. And those are the people, like, you know, I mean, I get the property appraiser's office that comes by here every few years, you know, and they walk around my place and they're like, oh, this wasn't like this last time. And I'm like, are you fucking joking me? You know, this is the way I bought the places. This place is like 50, 60 years old, whatever, you know. It's always been like that. Look at the you know, no, it wasn't like that. You know, we're going to have to put this down. And it's like, holy fuck, all I want to do is be left alone. I'm not doing anything wrong here. You know, leave me the fuck alone. But they can't do it. They thrive on that drama to make your life miserable. And you blame me for wanting to be away from these kind of fuckers? No, I'm sorry. You don't have the right to say that to me.
Yeah.
Okay? Because these people are assholes that interfere with my well-being. And
Exactly.
I have done nothing. I have done nothing to provoke that. And this is why I hate talking to people. I hate talking to, or going out there and dealing with them. And, like I said, it's not on an individual basis all the time, because you pick and choose that, okay, there are a few people that I enjoy talking to, but man, it's like I can count them on one hand, if that, or I can count them on maybe 3 fingers, So this is what leads us into this type of mindset once we've gone beyond all the noise of societal mess that we've had to deal with all our life. It just gets too much. And then you think, what's it all worth in the end? I just had a good friend of mine die. What was it, like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, he died. He was here 3 days before, looked in great health and everything. And then, I've had many, many people in my life die, friends, people, whatever. And, you start thinking, like, what the fuck's it all worth? Look what happened. It's not worth shit. None of it is. Yeah. So if you don't live your life the way you need to live it and get away from all this outside input, you're just going to be dead one day and it won't matter. And what good did it do? What's all the rat race about? You've got to be crazy.
Yeah.
And it's something that took me forever. I had 2 businesses, and I know the rat race. I know it all too well, and so do you. And it's not fun. It's, God, I don't know. It just kind of puts you off. That's the bottom line. It just puts you off to the point where just leave me alone, and I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. I mean, when the flies start buzzing around the house, then come and get my body. That's about it. But other than that, fuck off, leave me alone.
Yeah, it's like they care, but they don't care. They pretend to care, and really they just want to drag you back into the fucking madness. Know. But I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you, it was like something good came of something bad. So it happened for a reason. I've told you, my neighbours are fucking annoying. They're just inconsiderate, noisy cunts, making noise all times of day and night, interrupting my study and all sorts of stuff. But I thought, okay, right, you don't want to get into any conflicts. You don't want to go back to prison. You don't want to start strangling people and losing your ag. So I thought, right, let me go to, I'm lucky, near me is a quite a big Buddhist temple. And I thought, I've got to fucking go somewhere where people are just going to leave me alone. And I went into the temple grounds. They've got nice gardens and they've got people chanting and meditating and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, well, I'm not really a Buddhist. This isn't why I'm here. And I looked at the map, and on the map, there was a library. And I thought, now that's my kind of fucking place, books. And I went into the library, and there was nobody in there, nobody reading, absolutely full of Buddhist scripture, psychology books, all sorts of books on philosophy, religion, where people have donated them over the years. So it's quite a good library. And I reading through the books, and all the Buddhist stuff was about suffering and suffering and suffering. And I thought, oh, fucking hell, this is not what I want to be reading. And then I looked right opposite me, and I saw the Dalai Lama books, and I thought, well, he looks like a happy fucker. What's his secret then? And all of his books were about happiness. And I thought, right, what's this all about then? And I sat there and I thought, do you know what? This place is absolutely fucking silent. And I put the books down. And I sat there for a minute, the windows were shut, the trees were moving, but I couldn't hear the leaves, and I could see the birds, but I couldn't hear them singing. And the monks move around like ghosts. They're fucking silent. They don't speak. You know, they might acknowledge you, but they don't say hello. And for about an hour, I sat there, and it was completely silent. And I thought, this is what I'm missing. Just some peace and quiet. And I could feel myself. It was like healing me. It was making me feel better. I was like, fucking, the noise has stopped. And I sat there. I didn't read any books. I was in a library full of books. I didn't read a thing for about an hour. And after that, I thought, that is exactly what I needed. Just to sit in a place where there's nobody talking shit. No noise from outside, no vehicles, no kids screaming, none of that. And then I read some nice books by the Dalai Lama, and I sort of looked at his philosophy and thought, oh, this is nice and positive. And I felt better. I came out of there, and I felt so much better. And then I sort of realized, okay, every now and then I need to either come to this place or go and walk in the woods. Like, often there's people walking dogs, and, you know, groups of women riding fucking horses and shouting. So you can't even get peace and quiet out in nature always. But that's one thing I realized. The noise of people and towns is something that it wears me down. It wears me down. So noise for me is one thing I have to escape from. You know?
Yeah. I've learned how to tune out certain noises, you know, but people talking is something that annoys me beyond all measure. I can tune out the traffic noise in front of my house. Now, if I'm outside, you know, I don't even hear it. In the house, I don't hear it anyway because it's shut down. But, you know, there are certain noises that just aggravate me to the point of driving me crazy. And I hate going somewhere and people trying to make small talk. You know, completely stupid. What's this got to do with me or you? You know, what are you talking about? You know, a lot of times, I mean, I'll go into, you know, my place, and the place I go to lunch, and you know, there's a flea market next door, and a lot of tourists go there from different countries and whatever, and they come into the place, they have a beer, maybe a bite to eat, and then they'll start talking to me, you know, and you know, they'll say something like, "Oh, are you a biker?" You know, and I'm like, "Oh, fuck me, man." You know, really? You know, number one, I don't know what you think a biker is, you know, and you know, do I want to get into this conversation? And I tell them, no, you know, I'm an old has-been. I don't even have a bike, even though the fucker's out there in front of the place. But, you know, I hate the small talk bullshit. It's so uninteresting and forced. And it's like, goddamn, you know, can't you talk about something a little bit more interesting than that kind of bullshit? You know, I don't want to talk about Sons of Anarchy TV show. I don't, you know, if that's real or not. How the fuck should I know? I didn't make the TV show, you know. I mean, leave me alone with this crap. Yeah. And this is all part of it. You know, that noise that you're talking about, to me, is that small talk, that people, you know, even standing in line waiting to get out of a hardware store, and some, you know, person up there like, "Oh, I got all the time in the world, don't hurry up." And I'm thinking back there like, yeah, well, that might be great for you, but there's about 20 people here that want to get the fuck on with their life, you know? And I'd like to say something to them, but I don't, and it aggravates me, and I leave out of there, and I'm thinking, what an entitled cunt, you know? It's like, holy fuck, you know? Just because you have all the time in the world, you don't even consider other people. And it's like, you know, God, all I want to do, the cashier, you know, by the time I get up there, it's like, "Hi, how you doing?" "Fine." You know, it's like, I don't even want to talk nice to you anymore and be cordial. I just want to pay and get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Because I'm pissed off at this shit. So, yeah, this is all, I mean, all of what we've been talking about culminates, it adds up into what brings you to the point we're at now.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why, probably Jesus Christ, we used to do these hangouts all the damn time. And we've gotten to the point where it's almost like impossible to get together, even though you and I do talk, but, privately in the chat. And, but we still don't have the time to get into these long discussions or, and they are kind of important to talk about for realizations and putting out there what we think about it. But in the end, this really, all of it doesn't even matter have we helped somebody? Maybe, maybe not. But then again, in the end, who cares? You get to that point. This is where we get the misanthrope, where, okay, did we help anybody? If we did, great, man. Wonderful. I could give a fuck less. It's not going to boost my ego, and it's not going to hurt my feelings if it didn't help anybody. And so we stopped doing this as much as we used to because we just don't have the passion for it anymore. We have the passion for ourselves.
I think a lot of it was men were really suffering. Some of them were really suffering.
Oh yeah.
And those men were the ones I wanted to reach out to. But they
we tried.
We did try. But they seem to come along less often now. So, when I see them, they contact me, and I'm like anyone out there who listens. They tend to be so silent, and I say to them, contact me, email me, and people do email me, and I will speak to them in private the way we speak. But yeah, it's a lot less than we used to do, because I think the territory has changed. I think the talking points have changed, and there's a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of dick swinging and dick measuring and look at me, and I don't want to get too into the red pill stuff because, like you say, we're so far past it. But it's dishonest. It's not transparent. When we speak now, like we're speaking, we're saying, right, we'll lay our fucking cards on the table. We're being honest. We live this life. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's the fucking best life ever. But a lot of these men are trying to kid themselves, and first and foremost, they're lying to themselves while they're lying to other people. And that, I just can't see it as genuine or valuable. It's of no value to anyone to try and paint a picture that isn't true, and try and tell people you're someone you're not, or you're behaving in a way that you're not, and when you switch off your mic, you go and do something different. It's not helping men. So we speak less, but when we do speak, it's because we've got something to say. And I think that's important. It's not about subs, and it's not about money or any of that bullshit. If we've got something to say, we need to run it by each other, because we're the only people who think like this. And when we do, if people listen, they can share their comments and they can add ideas, and we can come away and develop our ideas. And as a result, we're better off. The handful of us that live this way, the small minority that live this way, we're better off. And like you say, fuck the rest of them. If they don't want to listen, or they want to lie, or it's all a bullshit game to them, I couldn't give a fuck either. I'm still here, but I'm not here in the capacity I was before. The passion for bullshit has died. I realized I couldn't convert anyone, so I just gave up. But yeah, there's still a few.
I got to the point where, look, this is me talking and saying what is for me reality, and I don't bullshit, I don't lie, I don't make up shit, I don't try to get viewership, I don't try to get any of this crap. I'm not into it for the money, like you said. I don't e-beg, I don't do any of this crap. When I say something, you can take it to the bank, and if you don't like it, fuck you. Yeah. You can just go on about your goddamn day. If you don't like how I think or what I say, that's your problem, not mine. But what you're going to get from me is straight talk, and I have nothing to gain by lying or trying to fluff up my own skirt or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so this is, I think, where we're both at. Is, look, hey, this is who we are. This is how it is. This is how we've come across this. This is how we've learned and grown. And whether you see that or not isn't our problem. Work it out for yourself, just like we did.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, then go ahead and make your own mistakes. Fall on your face. I don't give a shit. I'm not going to pick you up again. You've been told many times over many years. So go ahead, do what you want anyway. Hey, just like when I was younger, I did it too. But I learned, and I'm here now. So whoever is on the other end of it, well, you'll have to do the same thing. You'll have to learn the hard way if that's the route you want to go. Or if you want to listen, consider, and actually work at it, then you might end up in a better place earlier than somebody at my age. But that's the way it goes, isn't it?
It's always been that way. So,
yeah.
I think that's probably a good point to end it.
It is.
Unless you've got anything else you want to talk about.
No. I think my little trial yesterday on my Streamlab thing there that was babbling on plenty, and I think nobody wants to hear any more of my off-the-cuff shit. So, no, I think we're done. I mean, we've had a good, like 2-hour talk, right? That's brought everything to the point. And again, if we really can't add much more to it, it is what it is, as they say.
Okay, well, I'm going to wrap this one up then.
Okay, great, man.
Cool. Thanks for talking to me, Warhorse.
Not a problem, and thank you, everybody in the chat. Sorry we couldn't follow along there. I was too busy kind of getting into thoughts, so it's hard to read while you're thinking. That didn't sound right.
There you go. I'll thank them all in the chat there. Okay, we're done. Thanks, everyone.